We're in week 2 of the Everyday Advent series, and if you are of the tradition to be lighting candles as you lead in this season, this candle for the second week is known as the Bethlehem candle. And depending on your tradition or your background, you may know it as the week of love or the week of faith. And when I was looking online, like I Googled all this stuff, I found that it was kind of diverse. Different people believe different things. So as I was looking into the idea of the Bethlehem candle, it's really about preparation, preparing the way for the Messiah to come into the world. And as I was thinking about that, the idea of faith really caught my attention because the Old Testament prophets prophesied that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. And at the time, Mary and Joseph were not living in Bethlehem. They were living in Nazareth, another town. And they would have had to make the journey to Bethlehem. And so I started to wonder about what God was doing behind the scenes. And in the Bible, it simply says that a census was taken and that one had not been taken for quite some time. And so I feel like God was just like working behind the scenes, prompting someone's heart that a census needed to be taken so that Joseph, who was a Bethlehem native, would have to come back to his hometown for the census. Now, this was not an easy journey for them. It was probably about 90 miles, which would have taken them up to a week of walking. And we know that Mary was near the end of her pregnancy. This could not have been an easy journey for her. And every time we picture this of Mary and Joseph walking, what do you picture? You picture Mary on a donkey. Now, the Bible never says that she had a donkey to ride on. I think that's just something that we've added in there so it looks like Joseph was like a nice guy and gave her a donkey to ride on. But the likelihood is that she could have walked that 90 miles, fully pregnant. There are hills as you lead into the Bethlehem area. There would have been a bit of difficulty in actually getting there. And then they get to Bethlehem and there's no place for them to stay. They end up sleeping in a stable. And I was just thinking about this journey and about her as a woman. I mean, I have 4 kids. I've been pregnant 4 times. There's no way I would have wanted to walk 90 miles fully pregnant. And I just think about like what might have been going through her mind and just wondering like, God, this is difficult. Why do we have to do this at this time? But in all of that, God was working to bring his promise to pass. And so even when things are difficult in our lives, we have to remember that God is making a way. And even when we don't understand why or how it's going to play out, God is at work. And that's what faith is all about. That's my personal definition of faith, is being able to trust in the character of God when I can't see the activity of God. This is really important because there's so often that we would not know or understand what God is doing. And that's actually what faith is. If we understand and we know what he's doing, we don't need faith, right? But faith means that I can trust his character. I can trust that he's working. I can trust that he's faithful. I can trust that he's doing something behind the scenes that I can't see or understand because I trust him. And so I love this idea. And God works in ways we don't expect. He also works in ways that we would likely never choose, but he always works. We can trust that. You can take that to the bank. That's what my dad used to say. You can take that to the bank. You can trust in the fact that God is at work, even if your circumstances are difficult, even if it looks like it's like tragic all around you, he's at work. And I want to remind you of this. Our faith is always being tested. Faith is given to us. God says he gives each of us a measure of faith, but he also compares our faith to like a grain of mustard seed, which is this tiny, tiny little seed. And faith is given to us, but we have to steward the things in our life well and walk through some things, often testing and difficulty, in order for our faith to grow. The Bible is really clear that we're going to face tests and trials of many kinds, but they are going to grow our faith. Some of the tests that we come up against are suffering and opposition, obstacles, waiting. These are all things that even the ancient people from the Old Testament had to walk through in order to test their faith. I often think of the disciples, and there was several times where Jesus turned to them and said, "Oh, you have such little faith." And I used to think that that was like a rebuke, that he was like, "Oh, like, come on, you're so dumb. Why do you have such little faith?" But I actually don't think that's what it was at all. I think he was saying, "Oh, you have little faith." But I don't feel like it was a rebuke. I feel like it was an invitation. It was an invitation to allow their faith to grow. Jesus said, even if you only have faith as small as a grain of mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, be moved. You could say to this obstacle that's standing in your way, you could speak to the mountain that stands in your way today and say, be moved if you have just a little bit of faith. Little faith isn't a rebuke. It's an invitation to grow. And sometimes I feel like we have a little bit of faith, and maybe we feel like we have a little bit of faith, but a little bit of faith is enough faith. Whenever Jesus said that to the disciples, he still responded to their need. He still showed up and did what they needed to be done in the moment, even though they only had a little bit of faith. And I just want to remind you today that whatever it is you're facing, whatever it is you're up against, you have everything you need to stand in this storm. You have everything you need. You are well equipped. You have enough faith. You have everything you need to stand. God makes sure of that. He always prepares us for the things that we have to walk through. And here's something that I've learned to say, and I just want to leave you with this thought today. I've learned to always say, God, I trust you. I say it probably several times a day to him. When I come up against a hard situation, when I have to walk into a hard conversation, when I see things in my life that don't look like I planned for them to be, God, I trust you. I don't understand, but I trust you. I can't see what you're doing, but I trust you. I don't know how you're going to show up in this situation, but I trust you. I didn't think I'd be here at this point in my life, but I trust you. I didn't think my marriage would look like this, but I trust you. I didn't think my kids would be where they're at, but I trust you. And I have to keep reminding myself of that every day. And I want to encourage you to put that in your vocabulary as well. God, I trust you. I can't see what you're doing. I don't know where you're working, but I trust you. Would you reveal yourself to me? And hold on. Hang on. God is at work. I feel like this is what it means to live the everyday Advent when it comes to hanging on by faith.